SAFSTOR Matters!
Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and welcome to Episode 9 of SAFSTOR Matters, a program that features activities at the Entergy Vermont Yankee plant site. To review, in August of 2013, Entergy announced that it would close Vermont Yankee at the end of 2014. This occurred on December 29, 2014. By mid-January of 2015, all the nuclear fuel was removed from the reactor and placed in the spent fuel pool. VY certified to the NRC that the reactor had permanently ceased operations and was permanently defueled. A lot of work has been done to transition the plant from an organization to support long-term storage prior to full physical decommissioning. Now, in terms of SAFSTOR Matters, in Episode 1, we had an overview about the decommissioning process. In Episode 2, Emergency Response Organization was discussed. Dry fuel storage was discussed in Episode 3. In Episode 4, we talked about the economic impact of VY closing. What's going to be happening over the next few months was the topic in Episode 5. The Maine Yankee experience, one that was considered the gold standard before Vermont Yankee, was talked about in Episode 6. The impact of VY closing on a host community on Episode 7. On Episode 8, we had Entergy Vermont Yankee Site Vice President Chris Wamser giving his perspective. And today, Joe Lynch, VY's External Affairs Manager, will review the site's accomplishments in 2015. Welcome back to the show, Joe.
Thanks, Marty. It's great to be back.
It's hard to believe that it's been 8 months since you were sitting in that chair.
Yes, it's been a long year, but a very successful one.
Well, we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. I'm going to just shoot off some topics. You give us the answers.
Okay, very good. Let's go.
Decommissioning preparation activities.
Well, during 2015, we spent the lion's share of that year working on draining and laying up a number of the systems that previously were operated when the plant was online. Of 50 systems that we targeted, 35 were complete in 2015. The effort really was focused on removing all the fluids from these systems so that we can remove all the energy. And actually, some of the buildings no longer has power or heat. All of that was in an effort to save energy at the plant, since cost is very important to us. And then finally, we worked and completed a number of security upgrades, so our security footprint and view around the site was improved by those efforts.
Okay, topic 2, emergency plan update.
Okay, so right now we're still in our full emergency plan at the site. Back in October of 2015, we completed our last emergency plan drill necessary to keep our people in their qualifications and training up to date. Back in November, on November 7th, we successfully completed, I think it's going to be the last test of our sirens that are across the area, and we're in the process right now of working with the towns to either have those sirens removed or have them maintained long-term, even as our emergency plan changes. A couple of very significant NRC approvals were received back in December of 2015. First of all, we received finally the emergency planning exemptions. These are approvals from regulations that apply to all operating plants. We had certain regulations that were exempted because we're now shut down. And more importantly, the NRC approved our new emergency plan called the Post-Shutdown Decommissioning Emergency Plan. That plan will go into effect in April of 2016. It will amongst other things, reduced the emergency planning zone, the EPZ, from the current 10-mile, which covers all 3 states, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont, to the site boundary. So with that, we're going to also be able to reduce our staff. And unfortunately, as part of our plans for decommissioning, on or about May 5th, we will be reducing our staff by about half, most of that informed by the changes to our emergency plan.
So speaking about the NRC, what's going on with inspection activities?
Well, the NRC, if you recall, at the beginning of 2015, had 2 resident inspectors on site, a senior resident and a resident. Shortly after we announced our shutdown and ceased operations, certified that with the NRC, as you mentioned earlier, the senior resident was no longer needed at the site. And then on or about June of 2015, the resident inspector also departed the site. At the same time, we exited what was known as the NRC's reactor oversight process. That's their inspection program. And we entered in one that was very specific to decommissioning. So now the NRC does inspections on a regular basis. They'll bring an inspector or 2 up to the site for about a week. They'll go through their inspection activities, and they will continue to report out quarterly the results of those inspections. Last week, we received the 4th quarter inspection exit meeting with the NRC, and at that meeting, there were no findings or violations based on the inspection activities for the 4th quarter of 2015.
Now, you mentioned about license amendment requests and exemptions with regard to emergency planning. Are there any other LARs and exemptions?
There are 2 of them of note that I'll mention that has been in the paper recently and very important to the site. One license amendment request, one change to our license that we requested had to do with a notification that we would make to the NRC 30 days in advance of taking any withdrawals from the Nuclear Decommissioning Trust. This was very specific to Vermont Yankee. It was in our current license, and actually still is in our current license. This administrative requirement, we asked the NRC to remove that requirement. The state and other entities have opposed that. So we kind of reflected on that a bit and decided that maybe it was best to withdraw that particular license amendment request. We did that. However, in getting the approval for the withdrawal, there were certain conditions imposed. So now we will continue to meet our obligations of notifying the NRC 30 days prior to any withdrawal. With that, we have to list in our letter certain types of withdrawals. For example, if they include taxes or legal fees or emergency planning type withdrawals, we will include that. We've been doing that. We've been in compliance. The last thing is that if we ever in the future were to submit this, we have to notify the state in advance. The second one is in regards to what is known as our commingled fund exemption. Earlier this year, we received approval from the NRC to use the Nuclear Decommissioning Trust for things other than physical or radiological decommissioning. This exemption has been granted at other sites. We received that. However, the state, along with Green Mountain Power and the former Vermont Yankee Nuclear Power Corporation, have filed a suit against the NRC in Washington, D.C. District Court. So that's an ongoing hearing right now. We expect that in the end there'll be a favorable result, but we're a party to that particular hearing, and so that's another one that we're keeping a close eye on.
So let's shift to the states. What's going on with regard to our Public Service Board and the Agency of Natural Resources?
Well, I'll start with the Agency for Natural Resources. ANR is certainly a key stakeholder and an agency that has jurisdiction over some of the work that we're doing at the site. One of the areas that they've informed us they'd like to work closely with us on is in the area of hazardous waste management. They have regulations that certainly apply to us. Back in the summer of 2015, they came in and did an inspection, routine inspection of our hazardous waste management practices, where we store waste, how we label them, how we ship them to the proper entities. They did note a number of findings and observations, sent us a letter calling them notices of alleged violation. We're happy to say we've worked through correcting all of those. We took immediate actions to relabel and repackage some of our materials. They've requested some additional information. Last week on the 19th of January, we sent, we believe, the last letter giving them all that documentation, and we're confident we're completely in compliance, and in fact have both invited and welcomed the agency to come back to make sure that we've made all of these adjustments, and we expect that to happen over the next couple months. With the Public Service Board, back in May of 2014 and really all of 2015, we've been going through the process of getting approval for a second dry cast fuel storage pad. We have one pad that's currently installed at the plant. It does not have the capacity or capability of holding all of the fuel canisters we'll need for the activities of moving the fuel from the spent fuel pool to dry cast fuel storage. We're very well along with the process of receiving the Certificate of Public Good. We've been through discovery of all of the various interveners or parties. Those include state agencies as well as Windham Regional Commission, New England Coalition, Town of Vernon. We are now in preparations for our hearings. We expect the week of February 22nd to be the hearings, and if everything is on schedule, we will have that approval in May of 2016, and then we'll start building that second pad.
And what about the other states? What about New Hampshire, Massachusetts? What's going on with them?
Well, certainly our neighboring states have been long partners to all the activities that we were engaged in, most notably emergency planning. As I mentioned earlier, they were within that 10-mile EPZ, had towns within our emergency planning zone. In New Hampshire, they recognized that long-term funding for emergency planning was likely to end with the changes to our emergency plan. So they approached us on an arrangement where we could provide them with certain funding, and they would continue to maintain support of any emergency activities going forward. So we were happy to announce earlier this year an arrangement with the state of New Hampshire to provide funding for both their Homeland Security Emergency Management Agency, their Department of Public Health, and probably most important to us, local towns will receive certain funding to continue to support us. That was a 4-year arrangement, added up to about $279,000 for the state of New Hampshire. And we're in similar talks right now with the state of Massachusetts, and I'm very hopeful that we could work on an arrangement with their Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency and their Department of Health and local towns.
Great. Well, we're going to take a short break to see this newscast from WPTZ on the first Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel. We'll be right back.
Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant is shutting down at the end of the year. A meeting was held yesterday to discuss the decommissioning process and what that means for the region.
The main concern most residents have is making sure they know what's going on. WPTZ's Robin Estabrook explains.
Community members, state officials, and 2 representatives of Entergy, the company who owns the plant, make up the panel who will keep tabs on the decommissioning process of Vermont Yankee. At their first meeting, people looked on.
This is the inaugural meeting of the Vermont Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel, and it replaces really what was a legislative panel before. It's still established by the legislature, but it's really designed to provide citizens an opportunity to participate on a panel.
Commissioner of the Public Service Department for the state of Vermont, Chris Recchia, says groups like this are vital.
I think this is really important for the citizenry of Vermont to be able to understand what's going on with the decommissioning process, be able to participate in it, have a voice in it.
One issue people were vocal about tonight was transparency. They say it's important people know exactly what's going on with the closing process. And with the end of the December closing date of the plant looming, they'll definitely meet the requirement of 4 meetings a year.
In the next few months, you're going to see us zip through that because there's so much happening right now.
Mike Toomey is one of the 2 Entergy members on the panel, and he says groups like this work.
This kind of advisory panel has been used in other nuclear sites around the country as plants have gone through the decommissioning process. And what it provides is a central forum, both for the operator or the owner who's decommissioning to provide information to the public.
In Brattleboro, Robin Esbrook, WPTZ News Channel 5.
Welcome back. In this episode of SAFSTOR Matters, we're talking with Vermont Yankee External Affairs Manager Joe Lynch. Joe, we just saw a clip about the first NDCAP. How's it going with the NDCAP?
Well, the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel has been very successful. As I think you know, and I think many of the people in the public know, this was formed out of legislation from the state of Vermont, recognizing the need to have a forum to provide information to the public and to the panel members. The panel is 19 members. It includes 6 members of the public or citizen members, and as well has representatives from Massachusetts and New Hampshire, so includes the tri-state area. The first meeting was held in September of 2014. We had monthly meetings right through the end of 2014. And in 2015, despite Commissioner Recchia saying we're going to do it at least quarterly, we had 8 additional meetings. So we've had 12 meetings over 16 months. They've been very well attended, and they've provided really a wealth of information, both report outs on the part of Entergy on progress of decommissioning, the position relative to some state issues, important things, and they've had a balance of keynote speakers, subject matter experts in decommissioning, I think for 2016 you'll see a lot of the same type of information being provided, so we're continually getting information out to the public.
And it's also important to note that all those meetings can be seen on BCTV, all recorded on BCTV. So if you missed one, you can go back and watch it. How else has Entergy reached out to the public?
Well, it's very important. We say at every single one of our NDCAP presentations that open and transparency is very, very important to us. So in addition to the NDCAP, which is one of the key ways of getting information out, I've also embarked on a kind of a campaign to get information out to local groups, civic groups like Rotary clubs. I've actually covered pretty much the entire state doing Rotary clubs over the course of 2015. We've had meetings in Massachusetts in Greenfield on the request of Senator Paul Mark. We've also done meetings in New Hampshire based on requests from their emergency management and Homeland Security. So we're trying to do all of these types of forums to get information out, allow local citizens to ask questions, ask business leaders to ask questions, and provide updates as we move our way through decommissioning. Of course, SAFSTOR Matters is another very important way of getting information out to the public, and that's been going on now for coming up on 1 year. And then probably most important to us, vydecommissioning.com is a new website that was put together at the beginning of decommissioning. It is updated on a very, very regular basis. We get all types of letters between us and agencies, NRC, news articles, anything that might be relevant to the decommissioning industry is all posted up on vydecommissioning.com.
An excellent source of information for decommissioning. Final topic, the Nuclear Decommissioning Trust Fund. What's the balances? What's going on with it?
So the Nuclear Decommissioning Trust Fund is essentially the checkbook, if you will, for the monies that we need to complete physical decommissioning at the site. At the beginning of 2014, I'm sorry, the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, the trust fund was about $664.6 million. At that point, we had not taken any withdrawals out of the trust fund. Over the course of 2015, we started taking withdrawals because we're now transitioning into decommissioning. At the end of 2015, the trust fund balance was $595.4 million. So the difference, which was about 10%, slightly over 10% of the fund balance, was used for 3 purposes. That's $69 million. One, of course, the withdrawals for the fund for the work that we're doing at the site, the physical decommissioning. 2, market losses and gains. The money is a trust, so it is invested conservatively, so hopefully it will grow along with the market. And then finally, there are certain fees associated with having a trust, nothing different than any other type of trust. These fees include administrative fees and taxes that are imposed by the trustee for maintaining the trust. So those three elements make up the losses and gains, in this case the $69 million that we've seen as a difference. The good news is we are under budget with the project. We set forth a budget going into it. That budget was presented in our PSDAR, our Post-Shutdown Decommissioning Activities Report, which we sent to the NRC. So we are under budget and we are below where we expected to be. So very happy that the project right now is on course and the trust looks healthy at this point.
Now, by requirement, we're going to be issuing an annual report to the NRC. We do this on an annual basis. It's going to be in March of this year, where we projected how much money we thought there would be in the fund. Any idea in terms of are we ahead of that schedule?
We are. We expect that, and this requirement that you spoke about is a requirement for any licensee that has a nuclear decommissioning trust. This is not just Vermont Yankee. So on an annual basis, we report the trust fund balance. In the past, it's been fairly routine. We just report on any market losses or gains or any fees. Now we'll also be reporting on how much we actually spent. But that will be compared against the NRC has an expectation for where the trust balance should be, and it'll show that we are ahead of the NRC expectations and ahead of where we expected to be with the project.
So we can say that right now the preparation that we did looks like it's working, and that there'll be enough money to do decommissioning in a safe and cost-effective way.
That's correct. We put together a very detailed plan. Of course, if anything changes, we will make adjustments to that plan. But at the early stages, we are both on schedule and ahead of budget, which are things that are very important to us as a company and as a plant heading through the decommissioning process.
And as you said, this is something that we continually look at. It's really a living document, and we make these adjustments, but we're very careful in terms of how we spend our money. There's a process for that.
Absolutely. We have put together on site a committee that reviews all of our spending. So if someone needs money from the trust to do certain activities at the site, whether it's supporting the cold and dark I described, or laying up systems, or taking down a building to improve our security footprint, we have to go through the process of getting that approved. We also make sure that we use a competitive bid process. So we can't just rely on one bid. We'll try to get 3 or 4 companies in there to see if we can get the best deal. We also use a lot of local companies. We had mentioned in some of our report outs that we're proud to say we've continued a relationship with local businesses here in southern Vermont, in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. It's saved us money because they are local, they're competitive, they know the site, and they've done a nice job to keep us on track and on budget. And
is that part of the reason why we're under budget and save that money?
Exactly. I think it's a combination of having people who know the site very well, both contractors and our own employees, making very conservative decisions on what we're going to do as part of decommissioning, doing them on schedule and on time. We've met our schedule obligations. That's an internal goal, but nonetheless, very important to be predictable. And in the end, it's paid out in making sure that we're on track with our schedule and our budget.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show. Special thanks to Dennis Cordell for writing the original music for the show that you'll probably be humming the rest of the day. Karen Wilson for all her behind-the-scenes magic. And a big thank you to the folks here at BCTV who not only help us produce this show, but also recognized us with the 2015 Best Series of the Year award. We're very proud of this. For all of us at Vermont Yankee, I'm Marty Cohn. Thanks for watching.